It's your friendly neighborhood Grinch here to talk about beauty standards. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kitty Mary, and in this video we are addressing some things that are in dire need of addressing, not only on my channel but generally speaking. And low-key, this is one of the things that I am honestly a little bit sick talking about. However, I think we should do it anyway because clearly we still need to. As long as people have bodies, we will need to talk about this. As long as people have skin and faces, we need to talk about this. So I've talked about beauty standards, beauty expectations, different types of beauty, body, appearance related things, words. I've made several videos about sustainable cosmetics, how I get ready in the morning, my personal makeup routine, my personal hair routine, all this kind of thing I've talked about. And one of the things that I mention in some of these get ready with me, this is how I do my makeup videos, is constantly that you can wear makeup and be an environmentalist, which I think is bordering on absolutely obvious. I think instead of just replying to those comments in question, we are opening up the conversation, making it a little bit bigger, making it not about one specific thing, but more about a mentality and expectation, and especially so in environmentalism and in the sustainable communities. But I'm also super hungry, so I'm also going to make lunch while we talk about this. So one of the main concerns when it comes to beauty standards, and especially so how we expect women to look. Culturally speaking, women have had very little agency over whether or not they wish to participate in that type of expectation and practice in terms of beauty and body image and what else is related to how, especially so women, but in generally so female presenting figures, present themselves. And a lot of the beauty expectations related to women that are still very much so relevant today have come from big corporations and companies wanting to sell us stuff. Now, a lot of pillars in beauty standards like makeup, high heels, thongs were actually designed for men. But over time, these things have been taken in by big corporations and companies interested in selling us things, and they have been specifically marketed towards women, which is why today we associate these type of features with female beauty. Now, this isn't to say that there aren't also beauty standards for men. There obviously are expectations in both directions when it comes to how the genders present themselves, speaking from a more binary understanding of gender, of course. That discussion can be opened up way further. However, the social feedback or fallout for men for not participating in beauty standards in a similar scale to women not shaving or wearing makeup isn't necessarily as widespread, counting in a million factors and variables that might differentiate this. However, broadly speaking. And now for different communities, movements, lifestyles, etc., there are different types of expectations and different types of social fallout from not participating in those expectations. This is something I have a lot of personal experience with. At least sometimes people are surprised that I like to wear suits and heels and I do my makeup when I give lectures. The stereotypical type of environmentalist isn't necessarily what shows up when people invite me. This is not a unique experience. This is something a million people experience basically all the time. However, I want to talk about the expectations or the beauty standards within more eco-friendly communities or within the sustainability movement. So there is an expectation that because I work in environmentalism, a lot of people are offended, which is an insane thing to say. But yeah, some people are offended, some people are simply just curious as to why I haven't stepped away from quote unquote conventional beauty standards, aka shaving my legs, wearing makeup, doing my hair, doing things that just make it easier to exist in the world as a woman, plainly speaking. And I think whenever you participate in these practices, whenever you feel this certain, it's appropriate for me to do my makeup, or I kind of have to if I want it to be taken seriously, all that kind of stuff. I think overall when we participate in these practices, it's important to assess why we are participating in them. Is it because we want to feel good, or is it because we're fearing the social fallout of feedback from the people around us? Sometimes we have to accept that we are in social situations where we cannot control the people that are otherwise there. And in that situation, it's completely different from having your partner or your closer network or your friends or your family criticize you for not wearing makeup or shaving, etc., because you're just literally just existing. So there are different types of social fallout, and there are different types of scenarios where it might be more acceptable to lean into conventional beauty standards than other times. However, one thing that I talk about literally all the time on social media is necessity, and doing things that are necessary and sort of refusing things or scaling down on things that aren't necessary. And to that, a lot of people tend to point out that, well, my makeup isn't necessary for my survival. And this is where it gets interesting. Also, my bread fell apart when I tried to wrap my burrito, so we're doing a bowl instead. Anyway, so the beauty standard within the sustainability community sometimes is that you have liberated yourself from societal expectations related to beauty and thus do not need to wear makeup, shave your legs, whatever the associations might be. And as such, people that are still participating in these beauty standards are people that are yet to be liberated, that have yet to realize that they're participating in oppressive practices. Sometimes it feels like there isn't really any nuance between liberation and oppression. And when it comes to people's agency related to how they present themselves, there are so many layers. One thing that's incredibly important to remember is that the thing that makes you feel liberated and free isn't necessarily what makes other people feel liberated and free. Please do not take this out of context. We're talking about mascara. Okay. By the way, it feels incredibly wrong to just eat pieces of tortilla like this. I think most people, the vast majority, know that beauty standards related to, especially so women, is to one degree or another not ideal. That it's not ideal to shame women for not wearing that type of makeup or for not doing their hair a certain way or for having a body that looks a certain way. I feel most people know that to some extent that's bullshit. But I also think that most people also participating in these beauty standards on a spectrum. And I don't think it's an either or situation. Most people, the vast majority, once again, are complex human beings that are waking up every single day and decide how much or how little they want to participate in these beauty standards or how they want to differentiate themselves from those beauty standards every single day, constantly varying how much or how little they're participating. I don't think there's a big science to that. I just literally think it's describing the human condition. And furthermore, I think it's also important to note that different people experience different levels of social backlash, fallout, and exploitation related to how much or how little they're participating in these beauty standards. And in certain situations, certain people are just expected to do more. And for that reason, I do not think that anyone else in the world other than the person themselves are fit to decide whether or not they should or shouldn't participate in those beauty standards. Because let's be real, some people are just going to have a harder time if they do not participate. I can feel that for myself often, but I am not the worst case at all. One thing that comes to mind is Black women's hair in corporate settings. It's just a very clear example of how some people are just expected to do and put in so much more work than other people. So the people that are doing less shouldn't really be shaming those that do more, because if they don't do those things, they are going to experience social and economic fallout from not participating in that scenario. As such, I think we shouldn't shame anybody for participating in beauty standards that are being imposed upon them, because let's be real, it is so much easier to live, exist, and thrive if you are willing to participate in those beauty standards. I would never, ever, ever shame someone for doing their hair, putting on makeup, shaving their legs, whatever, because life is going to be easier if you do those things. And you might have other things going on, mental health things, family things. You might have tons of other things going on that makes a beauty-related rebellion not really on your list of priorities right now. So doing those things, participating, just makes your life easier. I literally get it. I don't think anybody should be giving anybody any shit for doing the thing that makes life easier. Okay, I need more bread. Like, truly, when do you ever have enough bread, really? I am not saying that we do not need to reassess and rethink and reflect upon beauty standards. Obviously not. But I'm also calling towards a certain reality of it, that we expect people to look certain ways in certain scenarios. And you can either completely disregard those things, which is fair, completely your choice. You can also choose to utilize those expectations and remember them in sort of how you want to present yourself and what your goal with that representation is. So one example from my own experience is that when I show up to either a panel, a debate, a lecture, and I want people to listen to my words and I want people to hear what I'm saying, I don't show my tattoos. It removes the focus. And in a similar fashion, I do the same with my clothing. I wear kind of neutral clothes often, fashionable but neutral, so a suit, a white or blue shirt. I also put on minimal makeup. I use these expectations and I use these tools as ways of communicating my message. And you can do this in the way that you want to, in the way that you see fit and what benefits you and makes you feel okay. I'm just here to say there are more nuance to beauty standards and how we use them and participate in them than headless sheep who hasn't yet realized that they're being oppressed, and the liberated. But I still think a lot of people expect certain things from especially women, not because they have reassessed or reflected upon their own preferences or what they think beauty is, but because everyone expects the same thing. Shaving is an incredibly good example. It's an incredibly powerful tool you can use also when you're dating, by the way. Stop shaving your armpits, and the people that cannot deal with body hair, not an ideal partner. Not an ideal partner whatsoever. You can have a preference for shaven pits. I pray to God I'll never say that again on YouTube. Not being able to understand in the brain that women produce hair, not an ideal mate. You can use that as a tool to sort of sort through the idiots. Okay, now going back again to what is necessary for survival and what isn't. I would say I'm pretty dedicated to sustainability. I think that's a fair assessment. I try to reduce my consumption. I haven't bought fast fashion in soon 10 years. I buy my electronics secondhand. I'm plant-based. I have renewable energy in my house. Generally speaking, also trying to work in a field where I continuously want to keep bigger corporations and governments accountable for their part of the impact. I feel like I'm pretty dedicated, as are a lot of people. A lot of people that also sometimes wear makeup and do their hair and like the feeling of shaved legs. Those have literally nothing to do with each other. And yes, makeup is not essential for survival. But I have never, ever seen a person, extraordinarily few people, that only acquire what is necessary for their survival voluntarily. Lots of people only have what is necessary for survival. That's usually what we refer to as a human rights crisis, because people are a lot more than their basic survival needs, and it's incredibly difficult to have good mental health if you literally only have what is needed for your body to keep functioning. And I'm pretty certain that people commenting that I shouldn't wear makeup because it's not necessary for my survival because of sustainability are writing that on a phone that also isn't necessary for survival. I am also recording this on a camera that is not necessary for survival. I also have a phone and I'm sitting at a table, also not necessary for survival. It's just a really flawed logic that we apply only in certain cases and are very reluctant to apply in other cases because it's stupid. Because it's an idiotic thing to say. We need things and habits to bring us joy. We need routines that make sense to us. And we need to do good things for ourselves. We also need music and movies and art. It's not either it's overconsumption or it's survivalist. They're just, again, a huge spectrum that I guess most reflecting human beings are aware of exists. And I often put on makeup simply just to do something extra for myself. Contrastingly, I'm also aware that sometimes I put on makeup because I want people to take me seriously, because I want people to listen to what I'm saying. But I think we should be able to hear what women and female presenting figures are saying even when they are not wearing makeup. However, sometimes that is not the case, and sometimes you don't have the power to change that setting right there. So instead of going all balls out in terms of your rebellion or your liberation from beauty standards, you can use those to your advantage and actually make people understand what you're saying. And that plants a seed that makes these people much more willing to listen to what, in my case, young women are saying when it comes to bigger societal issues that they might not have been so willing to before. Now, for a second, it might seem like I'm painting the entire sustainability community as only believing in one thing or only looking a certain way, which absolutely isn't the case. It was a little bit when I started out my zero waste sustainability journey back in 2015, 16. But since then, and arguably also before then, just not when I noticed or where I noticed it, but the field of sustainability are gradually becoming more and more diverse. So I think it's important to note that a lot of the beauty standards from within the sustainability community are slowly getting dismantled simply out of sheer diversity from the field, from people, experts, spokespeople, role models, etc. It's becoming so diverse that beauty standards are becoming increasingly difficult to uphold. Now, I've said this a million times. I'm going to continue repeating this thing over and over again because I think it's such an important thing to have in mind, both if you have been in the sustainability community for a long time, also if you're just learning about these things. But sustainability, environmentalism is not an aesthetic. There is no one right way to look or behave or live in order to be sustainable. You can wear suits and makeup and heels and shave your legs and go to the spa and do all those things and still be just as sustainable as if you're living off the grid, if you don't care about shaving your legs, if you haven't worn makeup in 10 years. Those two lifestyles are equally valid. They do different things and they are for different people. I think it's incredibly detrimental to try and put everybody into the same box, because wasn't that what we tried to dismantle when we started critiquing the beauty expectations and beauty standards of society? Was that everybody is sort of expected to look and be the same and act the same way and have the same preferences. And we're seeing similar microcosms within movements and communities like the sustainability community, but it's not an aesthetic. I think it's also really important to know that your mascara, that also definitely can be made both in refillable containers and made from more low impact ingredients, is not the root cause of climate change, and it never ever will be, when 71% of all global emissions since the 80s have been caused by the same 100 companies and government-owned entities. I think there is an inherent issue in the fact that we keep looking and pointing towards minimal consumer behavior and prescribing an impact or importance to that doesn't exist, or at least isn't significant or salient in the same way that all of these other issues are, when the main contributor to climate change is fossil fuels. Fossil fuel companies are extremely happy that we do this, because the longer we just point fingers at each other and not at their industry, the better it is for them. It was also fossil fuel companies that came up with the whole idea of the personal individual carbon footprint, by the way. So generally speaking, we tend to point at consumers, but I really cannot stand when we do that from within the sustainability community, because no one wins sustainability, no one is done with it or has completed or finished it, and every single person on the planet can participate in sustainability to one extent or another. It might never look the same, because people are different and have different things available to them and different values and preferences. But you can do things like wear makeup and shave your legs and still be an environmentalist. It seems so incredibly self-explanatory though. Lastly, to sort of finish this off, I think when we are talking about beauty standards, we really have no business talking or making decisions regarding beauty standards that is not directly applicable to our own beauty standards. You can have preferences and opinions, but not requirements for how other people present themselves. You can think something looks nicer than other things. Preferences and requirements are not the same thing. I think it's incredibly important to talk to other people, especially upholders of beauty standards, about why we like certain things, about why we put so much worth and value into female body hair, different types of textured hair, different types of skin tones and colors, and how we present ourselves, different types of attire, and especially so when it comes to cultural erasure and not just my small teeny tiny problems. Not everybody is there yet, so we need to talk about it, and I think it's important to talk about beauty standards and the value we prescribe to them with people that are upholding these standards. Generally, always, especially so men, because I have a feeling, based on my own personal experiences that the conversations women have with each other about beauty standards are vastly different from the conversations women have with men about beauty standards. And everybody needs to understand that the value we prescribe to these things are completely made up and that preferences are okay. But when we start to treat our own personal preferences as requirements for other people to exist in a valid way in the world, that's the issue. That is an overall issue. That is dingbat behavior. That insisting that your preference is what you personally find attractive. So tying this back into sustainability, I think even when we are dismantling beauty standards, conventional ones, new ones appear. So even in the sustainability community, when we see someone who are presenting themselves in a certain way, I think it's important to try as much as we can to listen to what they're saying, to accept that these people might be different from our own perception of liberation and freedom, but that it is completely their choice to present themselves in the way that they feel comfortable doing. I think it's important to realize that even if we are not prescribing or upholding conventional beauty standards, we are still prescribing and upholding other types of beauty standards, and they might be opposites to what the conventions say. They are still definitely there. And the whole idea that you need to look, sound, or behave a certain way in order to be valid, in order to be heard, is absurd to me. I can talk about these things for ages, and I'm scared that I'm also definitely going to. However, I am moving on with my day. I had my lunch, I had my rant. Everything's fine. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on these things. I would love to hear you guys out. So thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day and take really good care of yourselves. Until next time. Bye. Thank you so much for watching this video, and also a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys help me create green, zero-waste content, and I love you guys. You can find the links to my social media accounts down below and the link to my Patreon on this screen. Bye!